Hello, hello, hello. I hope everyone's doing really well on this lovely Tuesday, December 7th. Could be a little bit colder for December if you ask me, but that's just me. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a bit of a winter kid, so it's fine. But yeah, hi. I hope everyone's doing well. I'll let people settle in a little bit. But yes, welcome to episode 5. We made it to episode 5. That's always exciting to think about, being that I'm doing one every week, so we're here at the 5-week mark. So hey, look at that. There we go. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. My guest today is an aspiring technical director, lighting designer, and dancer, finishing his bachelor's degree from Wagner College later this year. He grew up in central New Jersey. I know that has a bit of a point of contention, but that's okay. We can talk about that later. Grew up in central New Jersey and has a wide array of hobbies, everything from making throw pillows for kicks to sailing competitively to just driving around and seeing what he finds. Originally an actor, some of his favorite roles and positions have been Colonel Pickering in Pygmalion, sound designer on Small Mouth Sounds, and co-lighting designer on Wagner College's 2020 dance project. He is a great friend of mine who I've always been able to rely on to understand the worst of my puns and also laugh with me at something nobody else heard but us. So, without further ado, here is Ryan David Fisher.
Hello, hello.
Hi there. I hope you don't mind the pointing out that central New Jersey is a point of contention with many.
I was so glad you did that. I was so happy. I put that in there on purpose, and I was like, good, good.
Good. It's our humor brains
We
connecting.
are immediately on the same
Oh,
wavelength.
always. And here's the thing: I grew up in the Midwest. This is like the idea of like north, south, central Jersey is not an argument that anyone has ever heard of in the Midwest. But
No,
I've grown to know my New Jersey friends well enough to know that a few friends of ours, namely Jason Biss, would be very, very adamant about the New Jersey argument. So
yes.
I figured I would give a good old salute to our fellow New Jersey watchers and talk about that for a hot second. But yes, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. End of semester. It's a lot going on, but
Yeah.
you know what? We just wrapped our other dance project, so let us go on. Which went amazingly well,
Good. I'm
and
so glad to hear that.
so we're doing well.
Yeah, just hitting that finals stride.
Hitting the final stride, which is such an experience, such a
And
time.
and I it's so funny because I'm like the idea that you're still doing finals cracks me up because when you first started college, we were only a year apart.
And
And
now it's gonna be like three.
life happens and now it's about 3 or 4 years apart.
Yep.
But it's okay. You're getting it done and it's wild. I'm so proud of you. Like just know that like you are killing it and you're doing amazing.
Thank
And
you.
so context for everyone else. How do we know each other? Good old Wagner College.
Good old Wagner
Um,
College.
to be honest, I know we've had this conversation before. Like I vividly remember this. How did we meet?
So I'm about 9,000% certain, give or take,
Give or take.
that somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
We met through Morgan.
That sounds about right because that's how I met most of my friends
Like
at Wagner
specifically,
College.
I think it was um a different mutual acquaintance invited me to like a little hangout that just kind of showed up at, and I was like, I know nobody here, and then just kind of kept coming
Yeah,
because you know what,
it happens.
it
And
worked.
and friends fall away, but you remained. And
I
that's
remained, you know.
that is a-okay. But happy to have you here. You and I have always been on this same wavelength. So I'm so glad to reconnect. We were just saying
Yes,
earlier off stream that we haven't seen each other in person since June. And not because like we've been in other states necessarily. It's just literally
yeah.
time and being busy. We just
We
have not
spent
seen
most
each
of that
other.
time, what, like 15 miles away,
Yep, give or
like
take.
maybe. Yeah.
So, we'll figure it out next year.
We'll figure it out.
2022, we'll be better at it. It'll be great.
Yep.
Um, However, despite the fact that we've known each other for so long, we did do 3 productions together at Wagner. And
We
that's not
did.
how it's not how we met, but we worked on 3 of them together and they were all in the same year, which also occurred to me.
They were.
We didn't do any shows together until my senior year, your junior year, but well, arguably junior year, but it was all in the same year, which is so funny to me.
Yeah, that was what we did.
So we did
We
Importance of Being
first did an
Earnest,
important thing earns.
where I was
That
assistant
was work.
director and you were stage manager. 12th Night, where you were an actor and I was a costume designer. Arguably, perhaps my only costume designing credit I will ever have, and that's okay. And
Honestly
then
fair.
here's the thing, it went well. I just am not built for that, and it's okay.
Costumes is a thing I don't ever understand. It
It's okay.
makes
It was one of those like I will happily get everyone their checklist to go to Goodwill and raid their friends' closets, and we made it happen.
we made it
Um,
happen.
and then we did Pygmalion, where you were the Pickering to my Eliza,
Yep.
which is so like I was like, oh wow, we worked back to back to back that whole year.
Yeah, it was really was. It was show to show to show. I
Yeah,
think the only pause in there
was probably
was Evita. That was
yeah.
the only show.
No, that was the year after.
Is that the year after?
So
It was.
I think the break was the second semester, or sorry, first semester, second slot show, um that that track there before Christmas.
Yep.
But out of Wagner logistics of how shows run and things like that, because I'm sure it's also changed a bunch too. But in general, getting back to the regular interview section of this show, I don't know that we've ever talked about this. How did you first get started in theater?
I actually got started through my brother. So I have an older brother. He's about 4.5 years older than me, and he and I. So our dad teaches at a like an independent high school in New Jersey, and my brother and I originally we're going to go to just our local public school because we didn't really want to go to the school that dad taught at. So it was a small one. It's a 6 through 12 school that had 550 students about.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know that I want to see
Yeah.
that all the time.
Um, but our local school sucked. I'm completely real. The local
Yeah.
middle school keeps catching fire to this day.
Oh
That
god.
thing is burnt down like 5 times. It's
Oh
incredible.
my god.
It's the most hazardous building I think in North America. Um, and we made it a school for children.
Yeah.
And so, for a various number of like interpersonal reasons, my brother ended up leaving that school halfway through his 7th grade year and went to the independent school that my dad taught at. And immediately kind of got started in theater there and just sort of had a great group of friends in theater. Um, and I'd never really considered theater as like a thing I would do up
Yeah.
until that point because both my parents are very like math and science people.
Oh, so he didn't
Um,
teach, so he wasn't involved in theater at all. Like your dad wasn't involved in theater
he
at the school.
he was, but we never really like we were always a very artistically oriented family.
Hmm.
But like professionally, my dad, his job at school, he was the technical director of the school, and he taught like physics, environmental
Hmm.
science, a bunch of other like computer sciences, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But he was also the sound designer
Gotcha.
usually, and so my brother kind of got into theater, loved it, made a bunch of really really close friends, and a really great friend group there. And like I struggled as a kid making friends. I was a very
Eh,
awkward young child. Um,
Middle school's the worst.
so I was like, you know what? I kind of want to do that. So I started the school in 6th grade, basically earliest that I can. I never really I went to our local middle school for 1 year because for some reason 5th grade was middle school at the time.
Which
Um,
boggles my mind when schools do that. But yeah.
Mine was the last year that did that. Immediately
Oh, of
after
course.
I was not done, they added it to the local elementary school. But I went to Morristown Baird, was the school my dad taught at. And when we get there, as a middle schooler, you have a choice for your second period class. Well, I think they've changed the schedule like 8 times since then. Um, where you could take either like a communications course, a theater course, or a study hall, maybe. I don't know what the other
Mm.
one was. I don't remember. And I decided, you know what, I'll do the theater one. The theater one ran in three kind of modules that changed each quarter, and then the fourth quarter you could choose. So you
Gotcha.
had improv, sort of a theater history and like acting principles one, and then tap.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I did that, and I walked into the tap one, and it was like, I have no idea how this is gonna go. And for some godforsaken reason, I was good at it. Like really kind, like I just picked it up really well, and like worked with my body, and I
Yeah.
was like, awesome, because I'd never found something that I was just sort of naturally good at. I was
Yeah.
kind of stuck with it for the rest of ever. Um, and I was doing the math the other day. That was 13 years ago.
That's crazy. So you've been tapping a very long time.
I've been tapping now over half my life.
That's really, really cool. And that's so special to realize that too, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It was strange actually working on the dance project we just did because it
Mhm.
was a tap and modern show, and as far as dance
Just such a
styles
strange
go,
combination, but that's really cool.
it was so strange and it pretty much worked. Um, and that was my those are the two dance styles I like the most. Um, and I regret not auditioning for it. Gonna be completely honest with you. I don't know if I would have booked it. I'd like to think I would have, but I regret not trying because
But
it
hey,
looked really fun.
you have it on your resume in another way.
I do. I was a light board operator. I pressed that go button so good.
You do what you got to do. I've been there.
I do.
I've definitely pressed that light board button. But yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, so if I understand, so obviously, like you got started in theater through school and things like that. Was that when you realized, like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life, or was there any moment later on that you were like, oh, like I can do this like forever, like for a career?
I learned on like pretty early that like this is kind of what I wanted to do. I think by eighth grade I was like, yeah, no, okay, I'm doing theater, and like that was a huge part of my personality. So
You're
that
like
was my
personality
entire
trait.
personality.
No,
my
I mean we
entire
can call that.
my personality was loud in theater. Um, but you know what? It works. And then I graduated high school, came to Wagner, left Wagner, and briefly considered a career in like law.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I was gonna bring that up a little bit later on, but if you want to talk about it now, we can.
Yeah, I started doing like a paralegal studies certificate program, and
Did you
still
finish
gonna
the
finish
certificate?
that.
Yeah, I was gonna
I'm
say,
like
are you gonna finish it?
2 credits short, 1 credit
Okay.
short. I'm like right there. Um, so I think I'm probably gonna transfer all of those out of New Jersey up to maybe one of the local
Yeah.
programs up here and just finish it.
And what spurred you to take that like that crossroads of sorts and then come back?
Um, Honestly, when I left Wagner, I
Due to COVID, yes, or other reasons?
this was for the first time I left Wagner. So this was 2018, 2017, 2018 year.
Gotcha.
Um, and that was just sort of like some finance issues. It was cheaper to do some of those classes at the
Yeah.
local community college. Um, and it let me get like do work and just sort of figure out where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just started. I took their intro course for paralegal studies, and law was interesting. You know, I grew up. I watched the legal dramas. I was like, "Ooh, cool! I can mouth off to a judge." No, you can't. Don't mouth off to a judge.
Don't do that.
Uh, or do that. It's a bad idea. But I took the class and was like, "Okay, this is really cool. I really like this." Then I went back to Wagner. Didn't touch it for 2 years. Then the craziest thing happened where the entire world had an issue.
Oh god.
And I went home again, and really kind of did it in earnest. So I wasn't doing any like gen ed classes. I was just back
Mhm.
there solely working in the paralegal studies program,
Gotcha.
um, and almost finished. Probably will be like if I once I get it, and if I do end up at some point like working in a law office, it'll probably be like civil law somewhere in there, civil advocacy. But I don't know. That's a problem for later.
Yeah. Yeah, no, understandable. Someone in the chat saying hi, so I'm just gonna say like,
Oh,
hi at AGCA. I don't know how you want us to call you, but that's totally okay. Just saying hey, hello there. Looks like commenting on Ethernet issues. It might just be Wi-Fi on our end. I know Ryan, you're in um, you're in a dorm room at the moment, so can only do so much. But that's okay. We're making do, and hopefully all will be okay as we continue on. But yeah, so in addition to like your paralegal and law studies as well, um, you do a little bit of everything in terms of theater.
I
Um,
do.
we'll talk about, I'm going to go through each of those a little bit. um so first, technical directing. That's the first thing you list in your bio, so I feel the need to talk about that first.
Yep,
So I talked to Ray, a friend of mine, a couple episodes ago about technical directing and things like that. So what all does this entail for you? Because sometimes I know for me the technical titles can get a little fuzzy for those not in the technical side. They were an ATD, but in terms of a TD, what all do you do?
absolutely, yeah. There's so many different titles. Um, for me, it's a lot of like, how do I explain this? Very much allowing for an entire show to go up on the technical side. So it'll be ordering all the lumber,
Mhm.
hiring stagehands if necessary, um, creating the construction drawings and construction plans for the set itself, then going through and building it, um, running load-ins and load-outs, and kind of a mix of everything. If you don't, because some places won't have a master electrician, they'll also be doing a
Right.
lot of the work for the lighting side of things.
That I could imagine would be a lot to work with to be managing both, in many ways, carpentry and electrics at the same time.
Yes, and I may end up having to do that next spring for
Oof.
Last Days of Judas Iscariot. I know for one of the shows we are gonna have a master electrician on it, um, so they'll help me out with that by making it not my problem.
Yeah. What do you like about being a technical director? Because I know it ends up being a lot of responsibility as well.
Um, honestly, I first liked it. It's just fun whacking shit with a hammer. I'm completely real with you. Carpentry's fun. You turn on a saw, it goes bizz.
Oh
Uh,
god.
but it is its own sort of, because it's not really a design field
Mhm.
in that. So you're taking the designs of other people and you are facilitating them. You're making sure they happen.
Yeah,
But I think there is its own kind of art to it in
absolutely.
how you do that. Because sometimes you'll receive like a set design from someone, and you'll have to respond to them and say, "Hey, this looks great. It's not physically possible.
Yeah.
You want me to attach this wall to something that doesn't exist in the space."
In many
Um,
ways, like what we were talking about before stream, it's a lot of troubleshooting again.
it's a lot of troubleshooting, and so for me, I think there's always two ways you can go about that. You can you can just tell them immediately, "Hey, here's the issue. Find something different." Um, not a great way of doing it. Personally, I think the best way is you look at it, figure out what you can do, and if there's a way that you can make it work that they just don't need to know about, it's like, okay, it looks fine. It looks like what it's supposed to look like.
Mhm.
Then do that. And then if that's not it, if you need a redesign, you kind of go back to them and say, okay, here are your options. Here's what we can do. Um, if you'd like, I can just work with what your intention is here and make it happen differently, or we can do it this other way.
Yeah.
Um, and so in that, it's its own kind of design in how you put everything up and the logistics of it. Um, and just you're doing the actual carpentry bit of it yourself. So when you have like molding that has to go on a door or something, you're the one who has to cut it out, which means at the end of the day, you have some wiggle room of okay, this is what it's supposed to look like. but this is going to look better in this paint coat.
Yeah. You're like, I'm just going to offer you a little bit of like, let's just make this better, just like
Yeah.
ever so slightly. And I think you're really good at taking some of the most chaotic situations and going, okay, yeah, this is chaos right now, or like this isn't gonna work, and we only have this much time to do it, but we're gonna fix it. Like
Hmm.
you have a very good level head, and I think that's super important from anywhere from like a technical director to a lot of the other different titles that you have that we're going to talk about here in a sec. But I think that's a really important quality in someone who's going to be a technical director. So like
Yeah.
props to you on that.
Thank you.
But you also do lighting design. What brought you to lighting
Yes.
design?
Um, so my godfather
Mhm.
actually is a lighting designer. So he lives in the city. He is one of the lighting designers on the Tony Awards each year.
That's amazing. Also, like,
Um,
what a chaotic or like place to be designing because that takes place in Radio City Music Hall. So like that's one of the largest
it's
venues you could
insane.
possibly lighting design.
And he teaches at NYU too.
Oh, cool.
So
What's his
um,
name? Just like
his name
guess.
is Eddie McCarthy. Yeah.
Cool. What an
So
amazing guy. Awesome.
he's great. He does a lot of like film lighting too. That's part of
Cool.
what makes the Tony Award thing that he does so cool because
That
it's
makes sense.
live, but it's filmed primarily.
It's bringing it together and bringing those mediums together, which is difficult as we have all
Oh
witnessed
yes.
over COVID. But that's cool that he has both of those abilities. Did you find like interest in his lighting design like growing up, or was it like when you started discovering theater that you were like, oh, that's what he does. Let me see if I can do that.
It was really when I started doing theater. When I first started, like back in sixth grade,
Mhm.
one of my brother's friends, because my brother was on stage as well, but he was primarily a sound designer. And one of his close friends was a guy named Alex Fetchko, who is now a professional lighting designer, um, who did lighting. And he just kind of took me under his wing. I have lost the photo, unfortunately. My parents have it. It's a fantastic photo of me at sixth grade, like 10, 11 years old, standing next to him. And he was always very tall. Um, after having just hung a couple lights on one of our balcony positions. It's a great
Mhm.
photo. But yeah, so we did like these rock shows, like student rock shows at the high school, where I was just kind of like following him around like a little duck, honestly, helping
And
him set things
"Here,"
up. I'm
you're like,
like, here's this light that is the size of me.
"Here's"
I was a
Yeah, no,
small
seriously,
child.
like, let me just, like, lift this up to you.
Eh.
Well, and then,
Um,
like, in terms of also lighting, you also have recently done sound,
yeah,
and
and
talking about
that,
that is gonna be so interesting because let me break this down. This is your first time sound designing, so that's an achievement within itself, but it was also for a play that takes place mostly in silence.
yep.
Tell me about small mouth sounds and what that experience was like.
So, um, I gave you the rundown of the story earlier, but I'll tell it again. The original plan for that was that I would not work on that show at all. But our stage manager for the show, who's a friend of mine, we're in the same major, came up to me on like the second or third week of classes and said, "Hey Ryan, do you want to be a sound designer? We need a sound." She's just asking like everyone in the major, like, "Do you want a sound design? Do you want a sound design? Who wants to do it?" Because we didn't have one, and they didn't need one. One of the faculty could have done it. They really didn't want to, and I was free for that slot, so I said, "You know what? Why not?
Sure.
I'll sound design.
What
It'll
could
be
go
easy
wrong?
enough." And in defense of my ignorance, I was informed that this was going to be a really easy show because it's our stage one, which is our black box theater.
Mhm.
And there's really not much going on. You don't have to worry about that much. It'll be easy. That was a lie.
Yeah.
That was blatantly incorrect.
For a show with
Um,
mostly no dialogue, sound design is really important.
Yep, we walked into our first. I walked into my first production meeting for it, and Mickey, the director, said, "All right, I want the sound is going to be kind of its own character here." And I was like, "Great! I don't even have QLab installed. Do you want to like? I mostly know how to spell that. I don't know."
You were like,
Um,
I've never touched QLab. Like, I've never
literally,
programmed in it.
I had never touched QLab. I had seen it open a couple of times on someone else's computer.
Did we not use QLab on Importance of Being Earnest?
We did, but that was Austin. Austin did that.
I guess so. That's just so funny to me. I just have this distinct memory of you, me, and Austin being perched right behind the tech table,
Hmm.
just like watching the whole thing, the three of us sharing one brain cell, just watching the show together, but also operating the lights manually because we were working with bare bones there.
That
Like,
lighting board, I love it. I'm real. I love that lighting board. It
oh yeah,
is the biggest piece of trash I've ever seen.
it was huge. And granted, let me give some context that this was a student run production. And so we were working with very bare bones everything. And I think we all bit off way more that we could chew, but it turned into such a fun experience because of that.
It was such a thoroughly enjoyable experience.
And talking
And
about
we didn't.
sound design.
Oh yes,
So
the
a
best
friend
view.
of a friend of ours who was in the production, Emily Lagasse, came up with this hysterical moment at the very, very end of the show. Because the whole play, Importance of Being Earnest, ends with a pun in that the importance of being earnest, the importance of being truthful. Simultaneously, the guy playing this man named Ernest being not truthful about who he is as a person. Um, one giant pun is the end of the play, and Emily had a great, fantastic idea for a final cue, a
Hmm.
final sound cue to punctuate. And I'm going to share my screen, going to pull that up because it's just so good. And then I have to share this to the stream. If I can click on it, there we go. Are you ready?
I was born ready.
That's our friend Emily.
Safely at last! Gwendolyn? At last?
My nephew, you seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
Oh, on the contrary, Aunt Augusta. For the first time in my life, I have realized the vital importance of being earnest.
It may be slightly hard to hear on that end. However, we used the Curb Your Enthusiasm music to punctuate the pun and gladly timed that light cue perfectly.
It was absolutely wonderful.
We were all in tears the first time we ever did it. And honestly, it may have read fine and just like, oh, okay, that was fun for the audience, but we just loved that moment so much.
I I think in rehearsals we for like the first 3 or 4 times we did it, we were laughing for like 15 minutes.
I think we were like actually in tears.
The very first time we did it, I think it was practically the end of the rehearsal, whether or not we wanted it to or not.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it. We're done. Yep.
And then
We're not getting back on track
yeah,
after that.
we can't get back from that. Although I will say I do remember our good friend Dan Smith, who I hope we can get on here later on in the next couple weeks. Turned around and looked at us and he said, "Oh, you bastards!" And that's when I knew we did good. And I was like, "Yep, okay,
Correct.
okay, I'll take that. I'll take that."
You are indeed correct. And you know what? Oscar Wilde would have loved it.
He would have. It's very true. But going back to designing a silent show, how did you go about designing it? Obviously, your director, Mickey, a lovely friend of both of ours, I'm sure he had lots of ideas going into it, but also I'm sure you had to rely a lot on the script. Um, How was like the breakup of figuring out what to use?
So what Mickey and I talked about particularly was he wanted it to be mostly environmental music, or not environmental music, environmental sounds.
Yes, because okay, let me also add the play takes place at a silent retreat in the
Yes,
woods, so it's
somewhere in
built into the play.
I decided it was somewhere in New England. It had a New England vibe to it.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, and Mickey really didn't, because there were options where like, okay, one could use sound for that particular show to like have some light musical underscoring at certain parts and like sort of affect the emotional output of some of it. But that also runs a risk of like muddling it a bit. So he didn't want that.
Right.
He just wanted the environmental sounds, which was nice. I liked that because there's also less that I had to worry about. Um, and so what I ended up doing is I talked to my dad first because like I don't know how to do this. He gave me some suggestions on how you how to go about getting like sound clips and sample sounds,
Right.
and then gave me a suggestion for a sound editing software that I kind of just learned how to use and made a lot of those myself so that they could loop kind of indefinitely.
Yeah.
Um, so I did that, and that was a lot of the design aspect then, was just figuring out which one goes where. The script was mostly useful. It could have been more useful.
From what I remember hearing, it was only maybe like 25, 30 pages long because it was all stage directions,
Because it was
practically.
all stage
Obviously, there was
direction.
some dialogue, but mostly stage directions.
Yep. So the stage directions could be useful. The author got a little carried away, I think, on the stage directions, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to put something in there. And she was having fun with that, I think. But it could make parts of it a little complicated, sort of asking yourself, okay, what's happening right now? Where is this happening?
Hmm.
What should this sound like?
It's like night. Well, okay, like sure.
Great. Nighttime.
Does
Love
that mean
nighttime.
crickets? Does that mean rain? What is, yeah.
Um, and there were parts of it where she was like, oh, the script is almost overly specific. Yeah, I think at the end of the first scene, because the show starts and it's raining out as everyone kind of walks in to like the beginning of the retreat, sort of into this, I guess, main building to talk to people. And it's supposed to be like thunder and rain and all of that. So I had that running sort of through the pre-show as well. I was just sort of thunder and rain the whole time. But the way the first scene ends is it's supposed to kind of fade to black as the sound slowly fades and trickles into just like a couple drops of water. I was like, I have no idea how to do
You're like, that sounds very complicated.
that. That's because that would be somehow getting sound of rain stopping.
Yeah. How does one,
I don't know what that like. I think I know what that sounds like in my head. I don't know where I get that. So we didn't do that honestly because it was almost so specific that it gave me very little wiggle room if we did that.
right.
Um,
You still wanted to be able to give
I
your
still
stamp
want
on the design. Yeah.
I still wanted to put something on it. So I think the final decision for that was the rain would fade out, and then you just have fading thunder in the back.
Yeah.
Um,
As a
I
whole,
thought it was
oh, go ahead.
I was just it was a time.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, and we talked about this earlier. There's a lot of in the middle of a tech rehearsal having Google open next to me so I could troubleshoot.
Yeah, learning on your feet, really getting to know it, but also I got to see the production luckily enough, and you did an amazing job. I remember like leaning over to my partner Harry and being like, "Hey, like, oh, I forgot that like Ryan was the one who designed this. They did a really good job. Like he did a really good job. The whole production was great." But I was really taken by the sound design because like there's nothing else like you can't help but notice it
Hmm.
because of the lack of dialogue and things like that. And I'm just now making this connection and looking in my notes too, going from sound design, but also being that you dance, you tap dance, which has a lot of auditory um like sense relationship there. So I think it's
Yep.
really interesting then to be picking up sound design off the cusp like that and doing it well, but then also being good at tap dance. So I wonder if maybe there's something like auditory there that
I
you were able to pick up on.
I think so. My dad and I talked about this one as well. Because that's actually it's sort of been the opposite of the issue I've run into with lighting design. Because I do love
Mhm.
lighting design, but I am legally blind in one eye and have terrible eyesight in the other. Um, so honestly, I trying to figure out what's happening when I'm doing lighting design is difficult.
Yeah.
Um, I am also what my lighting design teacher affectionately refers to as color stupid. Um,
Not colorblind,
I'm
color.
not legally colorblind at all. I can see colors fine. I don't know how colors that don't make sense to me. Um,
What a great thing for a lighting designer to say.
what a great thing. It's been an ongoing issue. I spend a lot of time sitting in a dark room with lights and just kind of going through that color and that color. Oh, okay, okay. I don't know what this means. We're gonna try it. Um, but with sound design, it was because you're right. You know, with the tap, and with music that I've done, I'm I have an idea of what beats you want to hit sound wise.
Mm.
You know what the auditory soundscape of a particular piece should sound like. Um, so that was certainly very helpful in just figuring out what the timing of certain things was gonna be, which sounds were gonna go where, and how even just how loud something was. One of my favorite cues in Song of Sounds um, was one of the nighttime cues, where it's just sound of like crickets, a little bit of wind, maybe some light leaves rustling, but it's really quiet.
Mhm.
And there's a cricket that is in the stage one building. And during tech, at one point, someone asked, like, "Is there a sound cue playing, or is that the actual cricket?" I'm like, "No, we're playing something." I was like,
Oh,
"Oh." So it was like
cool.
this. It was a lovely environmental noise that definitely was environmental. I mean, you were fully focused on what was happening on stage, so it wasn't pulling focus or anything. But you were kind of bolstered by that. It was sort of drowning out white noise.
No, that's super cool. And also I think it's special that it wasn't the cricket was interrupting your sound cue, but more of like, wait, I'm not sure which is that. Is that the sound cue or is that the cricket? Which I think is a wonderful compliment.
Yeah, I was honestly that cricket should have gotten some credit in the playbill.
Thank
Because
you to
he
my
helped.
friends, family, and the stage one cricket.
Really, I should have put that in my bio. In hindsight, that would great.
So I know tap is your forte, as we've been talking about here and there, but how long have you been dancing?
For 13 years, so I started with tap. Primarily did that, and I started primarily in like theater tap.
Gotcha.
Um, More recently, I've gotten very heavily into like rhythm tap, specifically in the style of like Gregory Hines and that
Yes.
kind of rhythm tap. Um,
Similar to Eleanor Powell, or like leaning more towards I don't know how to describe it because Eleanor Powell has this very rhythm tap sensibility, but also has the musical theater style in there. So I think it's very interesting. And if you haven't gotten a chance to like listen to her enough, that's a okay as well. But I
Probably
figured,
similar to Eleanor Powell. Like I've
yeah,
seen a little bit of her.
yeah,
Probably similar more to that. Um, but I do think just in general, I mean, some of what I do kind of edges into the world of just body percussion,
yeah.
um, which I love. It's just fun.
Do you lean towards any other styles of dance, or mostly just tap and or I guess sound making dance is a horrible
Yeah,
like genre of classifying it, but
but like it's not wrong. Um, I do. I've been recently doing ballet, which is a struggle. It's been an ongoing thing since junior year of high school. Um, I'm finally taking ballet 2 next semester.
Hey, I'm proud of
In like
you.
7 years. I'm like, cool.
Ballet is
Ballet
really
2.
hard, especially if you start somewhere as far as tap and never quite get into the technique is so specific.
It's so specific, and honestly, it's kind of the polar opposite of tap in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the cross training that like gets wires confused and very difficult, but like props to you to like keep going at it.
yeah, and it's been fun actually. I've been really enjoying it. I do like modern, though I've done a lot less of that. In high school, I did a lot of jazz and not outside of tap, just like theater dance,
Mhm.
which is its own kind of weird amalgamation of styles.
Yeah, it's like theater dance. It's like okay, but like what kind? Because
Like,
like
are we talking golden age? Or are we talking like rock opera from the 80s? Or
yeah,
what are
like
we going
are we
on here?
talking Fosse? Are we talking oh gosh, I should remember his name. My brain is just fizzing out today and that's okay. Like Mean Girls, The Prom.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm
Um,
I'm going to lose it if I I'm literally pulling up Google because I I
he's the
should
one who's
remember
done
this
like
name.
every single Broadway show for the
He's
past 10
Casey
years.
Nicholaw, duh.
There you go.
Oh my god. Don't clip that, anyone. Please.
Please, please, we don't need
Please.
that following us.
Please, no, don't. Please don't follow that. But yeah, no, theater dance is such a wide variety, and we can really use theater dance in so many different
Yeah.
genres, and so that's also super fun about it. When we were leading up to figuring out, okay, we're gonna have Ryan on the show talk about things, and you had written in like the form that I usually send out to people about things we want to talk about. You had said I don't want to beat a dead horse about it, but we were talking about how the pandemic has affected both theater tech, theater education, and like the possible avenues it opens up moving forward. And what really struck me in that is that what's a very important point and not beating a dead horse about is the fact that like I've heard this conversation so much surrounding actors and how does this change like an actor's education and so on and so forth. However, how are those who are, say, learning how to sound design, learning to light design, supposed to learn as well? Because they also need people to work off of. So,
Yeah.
did you in particular during the pandemic take anything out of the pandemic from the technical side of things that you've learned that you were like, oh, I'm so glad to have learned that. Things you were like, fuck that. And other things like, I want to take this with me.
I did, particularly in the realm of sound design. Um, because lighting and like technical direction, it's kind of difficult to do without like technical direction in
Right.
particular. That's facilitating something in a space, and a
Yes.
lot of at home and in quarantine theater has been we're doing theater, but we don't have a space.
Right.
So technical direction kind of struggled a lot with it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, lighting design, I mean, again, you need to have everyone in the same space to do it. The sound design you can do a little bit more of because you can broadcast that
Right.
more. And well, I'm not sure if there's anything specifically I took from it. A lot of what I took more was just the changing structure of
Mm.
shows. Um, and with sound in particular, we came to realize that okay, like podcasts, um, some of those got very popular. Some of the ones that, in particular, like are telling a story, where it's
Yeah.
not so much a podcast in the way a lot of people would think of it, where sort of
Or
like
something like this.
something like
Like,
this, where we're sitting down, you're talking and talking about a topic. Podcasts that are entirely story driven. It's just a narrative. You've got
mhm.
the big ones. You got the Magnus Archives, Penumbra podcast. It's a lot
You're
of
also you're also getting back to radio plays in a way.
you are. I guess that's kind of what it is. It sort of is a revitalization of radio plays
Mhm.
with some new twists on it because we have new technology that we can work with for it.
Yeah, like
Um,
because I know, like there's been like recently radio plays where it's like getting into the art of live sound effects again. And like, granted, we were playing with that a little bit in terms of like SpongeBob the Musical with like that one really amazing, fantastic sound guy who was doing all the sound effects live. But we were getting that a little bit more in radio plays over Zoom, for example, and things like that. And now, like, granted, I'm remembering this now. I don't know how I forgot, but we did get to work on a Zoom play for a short little bit of time. A Trip to the Zoo by my good friend Cherise Salters, which was a grand old time. Thank you so much for doing that.
I had such a good time.
It was such a blast, such an absurd, fun play. But even at the very beginning, like, Cherise had written a stage direction, knowing this would be over Zoom, being like, zoo sounds, like, I don't know, you figure it out, kind of to that effect. And so I had you all make a singular animal, like zoo animal noise, and everyone did it at once. And then we kept going with the stage directions. And so getting to play with what does sound have to be in like radio and Zoom plays, I think is something really cool as well.
And something else I loved, actually, particularly from that show, was knowing that their play was going to be read aloud on Zoom rather than necessarily performed. Therese wrote the stage directions as a character.
Yes.
So now the author was a direct character, in some ways the most direct. And it was more than just a narrator. It was someone who really was controlling the story.
Yeah, kind of pulled the strings in a way. Austin did a really great job of that. It was the stage directions may have become a tiger later on. Like he joined the characters, you know. I'm gonna include a link when I post this to YouTube. I'm gonna include a link to that video because the full play is on YouTube. So it is available for people to watch. It's also on my website. So I will definitely link that because it's so funny. It's so good. And you can get context for all these different things we're talking about with this particular 10-minute play that we did. But yeah, well, and it's so funny talking about like, how does one educate technical students during the pandemic? Because Ray, a few episodes ago, I don't know if you were able to tune in or not, but they had mentioned that their stage management professor the guy had way too much free time, created an entire Lego created show by the professor and like blocked everything, even like offstage things, so that the stage management students had something to look off of for their paperwork. Like, that's how they did all their paperwork assignments. The professor put together like this show. And I think it was like the Lucky Stiff, but in Lego form.
I am in love with everything you just said.
Right? It was incredible when they told me that. I was just like, what? But no, I think that's something like right up your alley. Again, that's so much free time to use.
That's so much free time.
I think it really speaks to our love for theater and theater community in a really dark time, to be like, okay, fuck it, we're still gonna learn. How are we gonna do this, and how are we gonna make it fun for people teaching and learning, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Incredible. I'm gonna go over to Instagram for a second, because we did get a question from our good friend Liam Abate. Let me pull up, because I did write this one actually out ahead of time. What's your favorite meme?
Ooh, okay.
Which is such a difficult question.
That is a very difficult question. It changes so constantly.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been most recently quoting, like I'm on TikTok, so I've been getting into TikTok. My TikTok is pure insanity. I post like once a month, maybe. I think the last time I posted was me sitting down and I had dice in my mouth, and dice dropped out. We're not going to talk about it, but
not going to drop the at.
We're not going to go there. But I feel like my current favorite meme has to be the Coney Island stuff. I don't know if you've seen any of those. Oh, it's sort of like this man on the street thing of people just walking around Coney Island, grabbing random people and asking the weirdest questions. But every part you watch it, and there's the only way I can describe this is you watch it and feel like you're having a stroke. Like it's just the most cracked out thing you've ever seen.
It's just like very chaotic.
Extremely, like highly chaotic. My favorite quote right now.
Just like this episode, so it's fine.
Exactly. I think my favorite quote right now from one of the audios. It's the interviewer walks up to this random guy and says, "Ayo, what do you want to tell Joe Biden right now?" Guy responds, "What's up, baby? Take me out to dinner." To which, in the most eloquent fashion possible, the interview responds, "Hey, yo." And that's it. It ends
Just the whole
there.
thing. Oh
There's
my god.
no. I don't know what happened, but
It's amazing how
beautiful.
our generation is somehow returning back to Dadaism, like in terms of our humor. Like we're all just going back to like the very basic, like I don't even know how to describe it, like zero context humor. It's
Just funny sounds in the right order.
yeah, exactly. Or like things responding and just like not quite connecting the dots and or making sense. Oh my gosh. No, but that sounds right up your alley. No, when you were first talking about like, oh, you're like, oh, the Coney Island me. The first thing that popped into my head was like, anything can happen in
In
the
the
Bronx.
Bronx, it's kind of, you know?
I feel like it's kind of in that same family, but
Yeah.
I also love that meme currently.
That is a great
Maybe
meme.
not currently, but like it's just like it's such a good one
I
every
have a
time.
very good story about that.
Yeah.
It's very short. Just because we also just did Into the Woods like a month
Yes.
and a half ago. Where I was the light board operator on that too. Press that go button. I'm very practiced at pressing the go
You're
button.
killing it.
You know, this wrist ready.
Right as I was drinking water too. It's like we're back at the
Perfect.
dining hall tables. Anyway, continue.
Very similar. Um, and there's that line. I don't remember who says it, but it literally goes, "Anything can happen in the woods." And every time I'd just be muttering under my breath, "The Bronx."
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, seriously, I will never be able to unhear that. And I think if I saw a live production today of it, I would go, oh, yeah,
Yeah,
there it is. It's stuck in
it's
there
right
now.
there.
This Danny DeVito type voice singing anything can happen in the Bronx.
I just really want someday, because I think it's Cinderella's prince who sings that line.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want so badly. I want a directing choice to be the middle of that song. The prince just looks right out at the audience, says, "The woods."
I think you have a very like breaking fourth wall humor. And I
Very
think
much
that
so.
that goes right back to our importance of being earnest because when that cue happens, we're like, I understand the vital importance of being earnest. And as Curb Your Enthusiasm starts playing, like they all just went like, and then the lights went out. And I think that's along that same line.
Oh yeah. My favorite part of that is just the absolute shit-eating grin everyone had. It's this look of, yeah, this was a 2-hour long show that you just sat through.
And
It
the
was a
whole thing was,
pun.
yeah, the whole thing was just a lead up to a pun.
We knew that the whole time. We knew what we're doing. You didn't.
The satisfaction
Now
of
you
it.
do.
Yep, exactly. So you're a busy person. You have
Yep.
3 shows coming up next semester.
Potentially 4.
Potentially 4. We're not going to talk about the 4th one. It's fine. But first, you're going to be the TD on 2 shows, Goblin Market and Last Days of Judas Iscariot.
Yep.
Super exciting. Super
Super
exciting.
exciting. I have no idea what your Goblin Market's about. We'll find out.
That's okay. I'm trying to remember, who is that being directed by?
That is being directed by...
Is that Teresa McCarthy?
Yes, I believe so. I think we're doing that as our workshop piece.
Gotcha. We love Teresa McCarthy. Go
We love
Google
her.
her. She has some great work out there. And then you're also going to be the assistant technical director on the 20th Century.
Yep. Which we've just started work on. getting ready to move that in. And particularly now that we've done Strike, because that is on our main stage. So we've done Strike for our dance project, and we can start putting all that together.
Start putting together that gigantic turntable.
The massive turntable.
How big did you say that turntable is going to be?
24 feet. Do you know what's even better? It was gonna be 28.
Oh my lord.
But that was like $8,000 more expensive. So we said,
Nah.
no.
How about no, 4 feet less?
What if instead we did not that?
So when are these shows running? Obviously, they're all going to be next semester. By any chance, do you know when they're running?
Off the top of my head, I should.
I should have prepared you for that question, and I apologize for not doing so.
Honestly, I've been meaning to send this to my godfathers for so many months and haven't done that yet. Let's take a look at the rehearsal production calendar. What do we got?
We're doing it live, folks. We're doing it
live. Okay. So Goblin Market is February 25th through 27th. Then On the 20th Century is March 10th through 13th and 17th through 20th.
Gotcha. So 2 weekends on that one.
Yeah, that is a 10 performance run. Then Last Days of Judas Iscariot. Oh, Jesus. May 5th through 8th.
Lovely, lovely. And these are all going to be at Wagner College in Staten Island, New York. Since things are reopening and at Wagner and things like that, how can people get tickets?
Yes, so you are going to want to email our box office. So that's just boxoffice@wagner.edu. And you will have to submit proof of your vaccination. Or if you are unable to be vaccinated for whatever reason, send proof of a clean COVID test within the past, I think it's 2 to 3 days.
Gotcha. So and for something like that, that'll be a little bit closer to time, but people can reserve way ahead in advance and start looking at those tickets now. That's awesome. I'm super excited, and I'm hoping I can come down and see On the 20th Century, because that sounds like that's going to be a blast of a show. But yes,
so excited.
It's amazing. We hit our hour mark. It's crazy. We're getting to the end of it.
That goes so fast.
It does. Like I keep telling people, like, just so you know, it's going to go fast. And then we get there and we're like, wow, you really said it. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. But where can we find you? Do you have social media, things like that people can come find you at?
I do. So you could find me at my Instagram, which I totally remember off the top of my head. That's the thing that I know. It's just Ryan_D_Fisher. It's my name. Easy one to remember, just not for me. Or you could find me at my website in probably like a month or two. It's not up yet.
In the process, under construction. It's okay.
Yes. And that would just be rdfisher.designs.
Awesome. That's so exciting.
Yeah, so
I'm excited.
Let
me know. Yes, let me know when it's up, and I'll make sure to share it to the Instagram so people can see it, all that good stuff. So yeah, I'll go ahead and do my socials in general. So you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Laura_Marjoram. My website is www.lauramarjoram.com. If you're on YouTube and you're watching this in the future, all of those links will be down below. If you're watching this on Twitch, you will see at Laura Marjoram, so you'll know how to spell it. It's not too crazy, but yep, it's there for reference. You can find this show on Instagram at Overtures Show. There's 2 S's. It looks weird, but I promise you it's correct. And you can also find all of the archived videos on YouTube. Just search Overtures Show. All of the archived videos will be there. Twitch only holds on to a certain amount at a time, so eventually they start disappearing. So go to YouTube to find all the older episodes. In terms of the next stream, it's getting into that time of year where scheduling is just a little bit difficult and last minute, just due to me receiving my own work schedules and everyone else receiving theirs. So stick with it. Follow the Instagram. That's where I post all of my latest updates. Thanks for sticking with me, and I'm super excited to hopefully announce these next few guests soon. But yeah, Ryan, do you have any final thoughts for the viewers live and in the future?
I do not. Just thank you all so much for watching and
Yeah.
tuning in and all that. Thank you all
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you for being on. This has been so
Of
much
course.
fun to catch up, but then also I'm really excited and happy for you and the amount of progress you've made and all that good stuff. And I'm excited to see you doing things next semester, just really killing it. So
Yes. Thank you so much. And I'm excited to do that and then to graduate and have free time eventually. Theoretically. They keep
eventually.
telling me it'll happen.
They might, yeah. It might happen eventually, but yes. Thank you for everyone who's watching, and yeah, see you all later, and have a great day.
Have a
End
good
the
one.
stream.